Have you ever had one of those weeks where your to-do list seems to multiply overnight and your brain feels like it has 48 tabs open, and somehow you still forgot to buy milk? Yeah, me too. When life starts to feel like a never-ending juggling act, your mental health often ends up being the first thing to take the hit. But it doesn't have to be that way. In this episode, I'm talking about how to juggle your commitments and protect your well-being while you do it. I'll share practical ways to manage the chaos of everyday life without losing your mind, so you can create more space, clarity, and peace of mind even when everything feels urgent. I'm Jeremy Godwin, and this is Let's Talk About Mental Health. Does life really have to feel like a constant balancing act? Could your schedule be sabotaging your mental health? And what happens to your well-being when life feels overwhelming? Because constantly juggling work, life, and everything in between isn't just exhausting, it quietly chips away at your peace of mind. Today I'm talking about how to take back control of your time and energy so you can stop running on empty and start focusing on what actually matters. If you're new here, I'm a counselor and writer, and this show is all about making better mental health simple, with no-nonsense advice that actually works. Everything I share here is based on both quality research and my own personal experience with anxiety and depression. On Sundays, I take a deep dive into one aspect of better mental health, and on Wednesdays, I share a shorter quick guide episode to help you build your mental health toolkit. So let's talk about juggling commitments and how to stop letting them control your life. Now, you may be wondering, why on earth am I talking about juggling your commitments in a show about better mental health? Surely that's a topic for one of those productivity shows, right? Fair question. And given that I just covered procrastination last week and managing stress the week before that, you'd be forgiven for thinking I might be heading down the productivity path. But I'm not. To be honest, it's only this week that I've realized I picked three sort of related topics in a row when I planned these out a few months ago. And as often seems to happen here on Let's Talk About Mental Health, I've found myself in a place where topics picked long ago can frequently have a really strong personal relevance for whatever's going on in my life at the time I get around to actually creating them. With this one, and the last couple, I've really been trying to find my feet and settle into a new routine now that I've started doing 2 videos/podcast episodes a week. And I do this solo, so it's meant having to figure out a rhythm that works for me, which frankly has meant a lot of juggling and trying to get back into a solid and consistent routine, balanced with my one-on-one client work and writing, plus my personal commitments. Anyway, the point I'm making here, or at least I think there's a point I'm making somewhere, is that it's really reinforced for me just how challenging it can be to manage everything life throws at us, and how feeling out of control can take a real toll on your mental health and well-being. So today we're going to talk about practical ways to get yourself on track so you can reduce stress while still getting stuff done, or at least the stuff that really matters. Because when it comes to trying to keep all the balls in the air in life, well, the struggle is real, and so is the juggle. Now, while I may not be joining the circus anytime soon, I have been thinking a lot about how much juggling we all do, and how easy it is to feel like you're constantly on the verge of dropping the ball or several. Because it's not just about being busy, it's about how that busyness leaves you feeling inside. So I'll be unpacking the emotional toll of taking on too much, and why it matters for your mental well-being, and how to start creating more space, clarity, and peace of mind. If you've been feeling like you're constantly running just to keep up, this one's for you. So let's start by getting ourselves on the same page with some definitions, and let's talk about, what does juggling commitments mean? Okay, so juggling your commitments almost sounds kind of fun when you put it like that, doesn't it? Like you're performing a dazzling circus act, tossing balls in the air with ease and flair, all while smiling serenely and making it look effortless. But the reality, of course, is usually a lot messier. There are no sparkly costumes or cheering crowds, just a frazzled brain, a to-do list that multiplies like a rogue Excel formula, and the creeping suspicion that you've forgotten something important yet again. And when life demands a lot from you, work, relationships, family, personal goals, laundry, maybe even 5 seconds to stare blankly at a wall, trying to keep all those balls in the air can start to feel less like juggling and more like desperately trying to stop everything from crashing to the ground. So this whole juggling act business isn't just about time management or ticking things off a list. It's about how you feel within yourself when everything feels a bit too much. On a practical level, juggling your commitments means trying to balance the different responsibilities, obligations, and tasks that make up your day-to-day life. It could be managing a full-time job while raising kids or pets, squeezing in study around shift work, or trying to start a side hustle without sacrificing your social life or sanity. Maybe you're working long hours, looking after aging parents, showing up for your friends, paying the bills, booking the car in for a service, finally replying to that message from last Tuesday. Oh, and trying to remember to drink enough water and eat something green occasionally. It can mean having to frequently switch between roles, often multiple times in a single day, going from employee to partner, to parent, to friend, to carer, to volunteer, and all of it is just everyday life. That's the kicker. None of this is extreme or unusual. It's simply the reality for so many of us these days. And yet, we often feel like we're somehow failing if we can't keep up with it all smoothly and gracefully, a la some kind of motivational Instagram reel, complete with soothing lo-fi beats and someone gently slicing an avocado. But the truth is, all that juggling can take a serious toll. Even if you're technically coping on the surface, underneath there might be simmering stress, anxiety, overwhelm, or even guilt, because there always seems to be something you could be doing instead of taking a break, right? You might start feeling scattered, like your brain has 100 browser tabs open and one of them is playing hardcore German techno music, and you just cannot for the life of you figure out which one it is. Over time, that constant juggling can lead to burnout, which isn't about just being a bit tired, it's emotional and physical exhaustion, combined with a sense of detachment and a creeping hopeless feeling that things might never feel manageable again. When your days are packed with responsibilities, you can lose touch with what actually matters to you. You might find yourself living reactively, constantly responding to everyone else's needs, instead of choosing how you want to spend your time and energy. That disconnect can have a huge impact on your sense of meaning and your relationship with yourself. Because when you're always doing, it becomes very easy to stop being. Being present, being connected, being kind to yourself. So today we're not talking about how to become some ultra-efficient productivity robot, because frankly that sounds exhausting. What we are going to do is look at how to make your commitments feel a bit more manageable. Not so you can do more, but so you can do what matters most, with your peace of mind intact. Because the real goal isn't to juggle more, it's to stop dropping the stuff that really counts. So now let's talk about, why does how you juggle your commitments matter? The way you manage your commitments matters more than most of us realize, because it directly shapes how you feel, mentally, emotionally, and physically. It's not just about being busy. It's about how that busyness affects your energy, your mood, and your sense of self. When you're constantly rushing from one thing to the next without stopping to breathe, You're not just juggling tasks, you're juggling stress, pressure, guilt, and that creeping fear that you're not doing enough. That kind of relentless pressure wears you down, and it can quietly push you into survival mode, where you're functioning, but only just. And when that becomes your daily default, your mental health starts to suffer. It's harder to feel calm, clear-headed, or even vaguely in control. You might find yourself chasing your tail, doubting yourself, or wondering why you always feel like you're behind, even when you're working flat out. That constant state of mental strain can lead to anxiety, exhaustion, and eventually burnout. That's why a thoughtful, considered approach is so important. Because when you're intentional about how you spend your time and energy, when you base decisions on what really matters to you, not just what's loudest or most urgent, that's when you begin to feel more grounded and in control. You're no longer being dragged around by your commitments. Instead, you're actively shaping a better life that supports your mental health. And when you do that, something powerful shifts. You create space to breathe. You're not in fight or flight mode all the time. You're able to respond thoughtfully rather than reacting. You reconnect with what matters to you, and you start treating your well-being as essential, not optional. And that's the key. Because you're not a machine. You're a human being living a full, complex, messy life. And the way you manage that life should support your mental health, not sabotage it. So then, how do you do all that? Well, let's talk through some practical ways to approach it, but first, a quick break to hear from the brands who help me create this show each week. And welcome back. Now let's talk about how to juggle your commitments more thoughtfully. Alright, so I'm going to share quite a few how-to ideas here, 24 actually, and I just want to say up front that I'm not expecting you to do all these. The point here is to pick a couple that resonate with you, try them, and see how they go. And then maybe try another couple after a few weeks. I've linked the transcript in the episode description in case you want to refer back to these how-to suggestions later. Don't try to bite off more than you can chew, especially since the whole point of this episode is about taking a much more considered approach to the way you juggle your commitments. Okay, let's start with get clear on your priorities. Before you try to manage everything, you first need to take a moment to figure out what actually matters most to you. This is something that tends to get overlooked a lot, or we get caught up in the idea that everything is important, but not everything on your plate carries equal weight. However, when you're in the thick of it, everything can feel like it's urgent. So that's why it helps to step back and ask yourself, what's truly important here? Identifying your non-negotiables, which are the things that support your well-being, relationships, or long-term goals, gives you a clear framework for what to focus on, delay, or let go of. Everything else can be planned around that or reassessed as needed. Okay, next, revisit your definition of productivity. Really, productivity isn't about how much you produce, it's about how aligned you are with what matters. It's so easy to get caught up in hustle culture and to feel like you have to do all the things and do them perfectly in order to keep up with everyone else, but you're not in a race with anybody but yourself. And so that means that you get to decide what productivity looks and feels like for you. At the end of each day, ask yourself, did I move through today with purpose? That's a much better metric than your to-do list, and it helps you to refocus on the stuff that's most important in your life, instead of getting hung up on the stuff that just takes up your time and energy without actually adding value to your life in the long term. Alright, next, be realistic about what one day can hold. We often grossly overestimate what we can do in a day, and completely underestimate what we can achieve over time. And that's the perfect recipe for making your head want to explode. Stop trying to do all the things, because that to-do list will never be completely empty anyway. Aim for completing 2 to 3 meaningful things per day rather than trying to do it all. And remember, rest and nourishment count as productive too. Okay, next. Make decisions based on energy, not just time. So, just because you have a free hour, that doesn't mean you have the energy for another task. Match your commitments to your energy peaks and give yourself permission to rest and recharge when your tank is empty. You cannot physically or mentally run non-stop at 100%. You have to make time to actually live your life instead of just cramming it full of actions, activities, and accomplishments. Next, plan your week with intention. Rather than just winging it day by day, take 15 to 30 minutes once a week to map out your upcoming commitments. Because you're not just managing your time, you're managing your energy as well. A week with 3 late nights is not the same as one with breathing space incorporated into your schedule. Build in breaks, include some buffer time, and consider how you can do things at a moderate pace instead of running around like a chicken without a head. Back in my corporate days, I found it helpful to block out 15 minutes either side of a meeting so that I had time to prepare for it and to reflect afterwards. If I didn't do that, I could pretty much guarantee you that someone would happily book me in for back-to-back meetings, and I'd end up being an exhausted mess by the time the day was over. So, plan for how you're going to manage things at a less frenetic pace. And remember that no plan is perfect, but having one helps you feel a lot more in control. Okay, next, use a single hub for your commitments. If you're trying to juggle all your deadlines and whatnot in one app, social plans on another, and life admin on Post-its, then that's a surefire recipe for mental clutter. Bring everything into one place, whether that's a digital calendar, paper planner, list, Notion, whatever, so that you have a clear overview of everything you're dealing with. The method itself doesn't need to be fancy. It just needs to give you full oversight of all of your commitments and be consistent. Next, batch similar tasks together. I mentioned the other week in my Managing Stress episode that jumping from one type of task to another all day long drains your mental energy. Batching helps reduce those focus switching costs and allows you to get into a productive rhythm. So try grouping tasks like emails, calls, or creative work into focused blocks of time in order to stay efficient and feel a lot less scattered. Okay, next, schedule clear space into your day. Similar to what I said earlier about not running from meeting to meeting, if your day is completely packed end to end, then there's no room for you to think or breathe. Leaving space between your commitments or tasks allows you to catch up, recalibrate, or just be. It's not spare time, it's recovery time. Next, use the 2-minute rule for quick tasks. Let's keep this simple. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. This keeps the little things from building into a mountain, and it clears mental clutter. Knock these small tasks out in batches or handle them on the spot. Just don't let them pile up. Okay, next, automate or simplify repetitive tasks. Find small and simple ways to streamline the things you do often. Use reminders, templates, or apps to lighten the load. I get a lot of random messages every week from people pitching guests for my podcast, which doesn't have guests on, so it always amuses me when their pitch starts with, "I really love your show," because I know they've most likely never even listened to a single episode. So I just have a templated response attached to a keyboard shortcut so I can tell them thanks but no thanks and get on with my day. It's not about being robotic, it's about reducing decision fatigue so that you can focus your energy on what actually matters. All right, next, audit your digital life. Look, your brain wasn't built for endless notifications, so cut the noise by turning off non-essential alerts and notifications, decluttering your subscriptions, and setting limits around your screen time. Your attention is valuable, so protect it. Next, set boundaries around your time and energy. When everything feels urgent and everyone wants a piece of you, boundaries become essential. I mean, they're pretty much essential anyway, so you can protect your peace, but that's when they become extra essential. Learning to say no or not right now without guilt helps you stay focused and it protects your peace of mind. Be honest with yourself and others about your limits. Every yes costs you something, so spend your time wisely. I talked about how to set healthy boundaries back in episode 248, so check that out for more tips on the topic. It's linked in the episode description. Okay, next, recognize emotional labor as a commitment. Supporting others, managing emotions, and being the emotional glue takes up real mental space, but we often fail to recognize it or to give ourselves permission to make space for it. So name it, factor it into your weekly capacity, and set boundaries around it. Emotional effort is effort too, and you don't have an unlimited source of it to keep pulling from. You need to make time to recharge regularly. Next, ask for help and accept it. You don't get extra points for doing it all alone. Reaching out shares the load and it reminds you that you're not alone. Be specific about what you need and ask for help when you need it, without waiting until you're ready to tear your hair out. And when someone offers help, take it. You don't have to carry everything by yourself, so don't. Okay, next, recognize when you're overloaded. Sometimes the issue isn't the juggling, it's that you're juggling too much. The signs aren't always obvious, but they're there. Irritability, brain fog, feeling resentful. Learning to be more aware of your physical and mental state gives you choice. So allow yourself to notice the early signals and make small or big adjustments well before you reach breaking point. Next, know your personal signs of chaos. Everyone has their own early signs of overwhelm. Maybe it's skipping meals, snapping at people, or forgetting things. Learn your signs and treat them as alerts. When they show up, that means it's time to pause and reset. So, pause and reset, because prevention is better than cure. In this case, preventing yourself from getting so stressed out that you explode or burn out and have to clean up the mess afterwards. Okay, next, create daily mental reset points. We've all had those days where even the best laid plans can totally unravel by lunchtime. So build short pauses into your day, like after lunch, between tasks, or before switching roles, to check in with how you're feeling and to reset yourself. You'll find that taking these small moments throughout the day can really go a long way towards helping to stop stress from snowballing out of control like a rogue trolley. Next, build transition rituals into your routine. Shifting between roles all day is mentally exhausting. So create small rituals, like taking a walk, listening to music, or changing your environment in order to signal to yourself that it's time to shift gears. These simple little markers help your mind settle and reset. Okay, next, use minimum viable effort when your motivation is low. Okay, so some days all you've got in the tank is the tiniest bit of energy, and that's okay. When that happens, do the smallest version of whatever you need to that you can. Write one sentence. send one reply, clean one dish. Look, even 5 minutes of effort counts. It's not about doing things perfectly. It's about just keeping the rhythm going, which will make life a little bit easier for you later on, rather than just doing nothing at all. Next, build in time for nothing. Doing nothing might sound indulgent, but it's often exactly what your mind and body need. Rest isn't a reward, it's a requirement. So, schedule in downtime for yourself just like you would any other commitment. Even 10 minutes of stillness can make a massive world of difference to your mental health and well-being. Okay, next, embrace a plate-spinning mindset. So not everything needs your full attention every single day. When you're spinning plates, if you have nothing better to do with your time, you don't stand there spinning them all constantly. You intervene only when each plate looks like it's starting to run out of energy or threatening to go into a wobble. Life works better when you rotate your focus, giving energy to what needs it most and letting other things coast for a bit. That's not neglect, it's sustainable juggling. So, decide what it is that needs your energy and attention this week versus those things that can maybe be allowed to slow down a bit without smashing or falling to bits. You can't do everything at once, so choose to put your energy where it's most needed, as well as where it's going to have the biggest positive impact on your life. And so that leads to my next point. Be ruthless about what's actually necessary. Take a moment to question each thing on your plate. Is it essential? Is it your responsibility? Is it aligned with your values and goals? Reviewing your commitments regularly helps to clear out whatever's draining your energy unnecessarily. Give yourself permission to let go of anything that no longer serves you. Okay, next. Make space for joy, not just duties. If your week is packed with obligations but no joy, then it's no wonder you feel drained. Regularly schedule in something enjoyable to balance out the heavy stuff, even a short walk or listening to music. Joy isn't optional, it's the fuel of life. Next, celebrate what you did do. It's super easy to focus on what didn't get done. Instead, acknowledge what you did accomplish, no matter how small. This builds your confidence, and it serves to reinforce a much healthier mindset than guilt ever could. Because when it comes to juggling your commitments, what it all boils down to is this. Life will always have its busy seasons, moments when everything feels like it's happening at once, and the juggle feels more like a scramble. But you don't have to let chaos run the show. When you begin to approach your commitments with thought and intention, rather than pressure and perfectionism, you create space for clarity, balance, and a greater sense of peace within yourself. And from that place, everything becomes just a little more manageable. Not perfect, not always easy, but grounded and doable. So if things have felt a bit all over the place lately, take a deep breath, regroup, and remember, you have more choice than you think, and you're allowed to make changes that support your well-being. The choice is yours, as it is with all things related to your well-being. So, what choice will you make today? Each week I like to finish up by sharing a quote about the week's topic, and I encourage you to take a few moments to really reflect on it and consider what it means to you. This week's quote is by an unknown author, and it is: "The trick to juggling is determining which balls are made of rubber and which ones are made of glass." Let me repeat that. The trick to juggling is determining which balls are made of rubber and which ones are made of glass. Alright, that's nearly it for this week. How do you juggle your commitments thoughtfully? Leave me a comment and let's talk. I'd love to hear your approach. If you missed my recent episode, How to Stop Your To-Do List Taking Over, it's a quick practical guide that pairs really well with this episode. You'll find it linked in the description. To stay up to date with new episodes and tools to support your mental well-being, join my free mailing list at ltamh.com. And if you'd like early access to ad-free episodes and exclusive content, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. Links are in the description. Next week, I'll be talking about the importance of expressing yourself. Make sure you follow or subscribe so you don't miss it. Thank you very much for joining me today. Look after yourself and make a conscious effort to share positivity and kindness out into the world, because you get back what you put out. Take care and talk to you next time. Let's Talk About Mental Health is an independent program proudly produced by Reconnaissance Media.